What is up, guys and girls? Hurricane Liz here. Today we're going to talk about a type of suspension that is running rampant inside of Amazon. And what does this mean? Well, it means that Amazon is not only suspending your accounts, but they are 100% keeping your money. Not only are they kicking you in the nuts, but they're shoving you on the way out as they keep your money. A line taken from Vegas Vacation, which if you haven't seen that, that's exactly what Amazon's doing to you. So today we're going to talk about this type of suspension, what it's all about, what to beware of, and if there's any way to get out of this suspension. So we're going to talk about that and a heck of a lot more. So I'm super fired up for this. Hope you're fired up. Let's do this. So before I start this video, I just wanted to let you guys know that my email is below in the description box. I do have a team that specializes in Section 3s alone, and we have over a year experience working on these and helping people get their money back. So if you have questions or comments about that, please feel free to email me below. But other than that, let's talk about Section 3s. All right, so what type of suspension are we talking about? It's all the rage. That typically happens once a year. Yes, this type of suspension is happening once a year. Every September, it seems like Amazon cleans house. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean they clean about as often as I clean my apartment. But all joking aside, what they pretty much will do is once a year, it almost always comes September or October, right in the midst or right before Q4. They will clean out every account that they feel is not even performing that well, or somewhat performing well, or somewhat performing in a sketchy manner. And what I mean by that is they're going to eliminate all drop shipping stores and any types of stores that they feel are doing review manipulations or some sort of finessing of their accounts. They're going to get rid of those guys and they're going to suspend them. However, recently what they've done to these stores is they've invented something called a Section 3 lockout. And it's not necessarily even a lockout. The lockout is the most severe of all types of suspensions, but it's basically called Section 3. So what does it mean when you get a Section 3 suspension, and how the hell can you get out of it? Because I know there's a lot of people out there. I get a countless amount of emails on a daily basis like, I got all this money stuck in Amazon and I don't know how to get it out. Well, here's what I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you the whole lowdown on it, how this all started, how you can get out of it, if even that, and what kind of recourse you have. Now, it's important to note that Section 3 originally started by just being related to drop shipping stores alone, which basically means if you had a drop shipping store and Amazon wanted to get rid of you, they invented this Section 3 drop shipping violation. And what they pretty much did is they held your funds. They held your funds until you could prove that you were worthy of selling on Amazon. Now, they don't really even say that they're going to reinstate you. What they will typically say in the email is they say you've been caught of violating our drop shipping policies. Your store is now suspended and your ability to fulfill via merchant fulfill is gone. You're done. The only way that you can sell on our particular platform is through FBA, which would basically mean you'd have to send things into them and allow them to fulfill to all your customers. However, here's what we know about that. If you tried to fight this, they would hold your funds in most cases. Now, sometimes you'll be lucky enough for them to have released the funds initially and you not have any funds stuck in there whatsoever. If this is the case, consider yourself a lucky son of a gun, because most people get their funds held. And here's where it gets scary. I've seen funds in the range of as much as $1 million held up, and Amazon has no plan to give it back. And I mean, I know people that have hired attorneys to try and get their money back and that have sent countless amounts of letters and appeals. And guess what? Amazon doesn't give two shits what they've got to say. If they feel that you're not worthy of getting another shot, they're hanging on to that money. And I don't even know if it's legal. It's almost considered to me like borderline highway robbery. Like they're basically kicking you in the nuts, taking all your money and holding on to it until they feel fit to release that amount of money. And sometimes it can be an ungodly sum, as I just discussed. In other instances, what will happen is a person will think like, okay, well, then I can still FBA, and they'll gather all this inventory together. They'll ship it into Amazon. And once they send it in Amazon, Amazon will freeze up the inventory and pretty much hang on to it. And in some cases, there's even been a situation or situations where they'll confiscate the inventory, they'll destroy the inventory, and they'll still hang on to the funds not having any intention to give it back to the seller. So you have to be very careful if you get one of these Section 3 lockouts or even Section 3s to begin with. So, and that's kind of a quick rundown of where we got with the Section 3. However, the last and final thing that I will note on the history of Section 3s is where we're at with them now. Because now what it seems to be happening is Amazon is classifying any type of suspension that they really have no categorization for as a Section 3. So literally Section 3 can be a very general topic. It's a very general and broad scope of different types of suspensions that Amazon just has no idea where else to lump them. So they can literally call review and manipulation a Section 3. They could call drop shipping a Section 3, and they could call something completely different beyond the scope of those two a Section 3. So it's almost like a catch-all, and anything that it's not categorized as anything else is going to be a Section 3. And that's why it's so difficult to truly understand how to get around these Section 3s and why so many people are having their funds held up and are pretty much getting to the point where they just straight up give up. So, okay, before we talk about how to handle this and expectations with handling this, let's talk about the difference. There's a couple different types of Section 3s. The main two that are out there are the standard Section 3, where you still have access to the account. You can still submit plan of actions, plan of appeals straight from the seller dashboard, and everything's still good. You can still log in there. The only thing that you cannot do from there is sell. So your ability to sell is completely taken away, but you can still log into the Section 3. Now, your ability to sell merchant versus FBA can also be different. In some instances, they can take both away. In other instances, they'll just take away FBM, which is fulfilled by merchant, and they'll still allow you to sell FBA. But again, beware of sending in that FBA inventory. As I've said before, it seems that it can be tricky, and if they feel like it, they can confiscate that inventory and then hold it. So if you are to want to sell FBA after a Section 3 violation, my best advice to you would be to send in a very small amount of inventory and test the waters first. Get your feet wet a little bit, generate some sales, make sure they don't all of a sudden confiscate the inventory and then shut you down completely. You want to be very careful of the inventory that you send in and almost expect to lose it, just as a worst case scenario. Now, with the full-on Section 3 lockout, what this basically means is they have eliminated your ability to even log into the account, which is a pain in the ass in and of itself, because now not only are you locked out of the account, you can't get the funds whatsoever, you clearly can't sell, but the other thing is that if you even want to appeal this, you're now going to have to appeal this via email. And in some instances, somebody that's brand spanking new or has no idea how to handle this will not know what email and who to send the appeal to. So a lot of times the appeal will be overlooked, and it just seems like a futile effort where you're never going to get anywhere. So I kind of completely understand how you feel if this has happened to you. I've seen several people that are in the same boat as you are and that are completely locked out, which can be extremely annoying. So now this is where I'm going to talk about expectations, how to manage this, what to expect, and what's in store for you if they decided to hold your funds. Well, first things first, there are several people that are selling plan of appeals or offering to help you get reinstated, but there are very few people that really know what they're doing. A title at the end of your name or being an attorney isn't going to determine whether you get the account or not. Even attorneys out there don't know the impact that this has had on many sellers, and they don't know the right words to use. A lot of times it comes down to the exact verbiage that you use, and or at the time, if you get the right person to read through your appeal and then sort of be able to relate to you and then allow you back on the platform and at least allow you access to getting your funds back. So that's the first thing, is just understanding that this is going to be a game of numbers, which means you could very well be appealing this account for up to a year. We do have some accounts where we're still appealing a year later, and we still haven't seen to have made any sort of strides with Amazon. So just keep that in mind. This is a long-term game, and even though it seems like your funds are completely lost, almost every single account that we've handled has at one point or another received their funds back. With that being said, like I said, beware of people that are telling you, oh, we should do this or we should do that, and they have zero experience dealing with these. These things are very tricky, they're very touchy. You have to be able to say the right things and know the types of things that do get accounts back. Lastly, since they do require multiple appeals to be submitted, they can be quite expensive, and they're not going to be cheap because somebody's going to have to be willing to submit these for you on multiple occasions. It's not just going to happen overnight where you get your money back. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a little bit of working, a little bit of finesse, and that comes with time. And so that's basically a quick rundown of what Section 3s are, what to expect, and how to be able to manage those. So hopefully you learned a trick or two from this video. Again, the biggest trick of all is there's really no trick. It's just all about perseverance, determination, and continually submitting a plan of action every single time they reject one. Last thing before I do leave is just understand that the first plans of actions that are submitted are the most important, because after a while, it's going to take a lot longer for them to respond, and they're going to start looking at them less frequently. So your first few got to be your strongest. Don't screw around on the first few. Try to get the strongest straight out of the gate. If you decide to do this yourself before you hire a professional, keep that in mind. Once you do hire the professional, it could take a lot longer for them to be able to get you an approval, because you've already kind of fudged it up in the beginning by submitting what you think was right. And in some cases, it takes a trained eye to be able to figure out what the hell's going on here. So again, my email is below in case you can't get a Section 3 unsuspended. I do have an entire team that specializes in this and this only. And if you want more information about that, feel free to email me. Other than that, questions and comments go below. I always personally answer those, and I'll see you guys next time.